Record. Hi, Stephen. Thank you so much for your time. I think you probably would be a great fit for our company. So you ready for the case?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Great. Today is an interviewer-led case. So I will start with the case prompt. Our client, Camco, is a manufacturer of basic commodity chemicals with a single-digit market share. It possesses no other competencies or capabilities other than as chemicals manufacturer. It recently emerged from bankruptcy and has limited access to capital. The client has asked for our help to evaluate the sustainability of their business model and recommend some strategic alternatives to it.
Okay. A business model and great. So thank you first of all. Just to recap what our client is. Our client is Camco, a manufacturer of commodity chemicals. They own a single-digit market share in this particular product, and their only capabilities is the chemical products that they manufacture. They have experienced bankruptcy and they have limited access to capital. And our client our role is to determine the sustainability of their business model and if there are any glaring problems to come up with some alternatives for our client. Is that pretty much what our issue is at the moment?
Yes.
Great. So just a quick question of just a quick clarifying questions for our client and for the case. Um, what is particularly the objective of our client in regards to sustainability of business model? Are there any key metrics for success or any key metrics that they would like us to measure sustainability of business model?
What do you think is the key metrics for business sustainability?
I think most important would be profit, making sure that we have just making sure profitability over a sustained time period. And so if not, if not profitable now, ultimately to reach profitability at some point.
Yeah, correct. Profitability is the thing that our client worry about most.
Absolutely. Great. So profitability. Just a quick clarifying questions. Could you give some information or do you have any information about this manufacturing supply chain of our client with this being a manufacturer? Is there any information on from raw materials to distribution, what their supply chain is operating?
Yeah, so far we only know chemical, Chemco are producing two chemicals, two commodity chemicals. One
Hmm.
is chemical X and another is chemical Y. The chemical X is the primary product. And chemical Y is a byproduct of Y. And the ratio is 1.5 Y to 1 X.
Just to make sure Chem X is the primary product, Chem Y
Yeah.
is the byproduct, and
Yeah,
for every 1x of Chem Y, there's 1.5 Chem 1x of Chem X, there's 1.5x of Chem Y, correct?
correct.
Great. Um, let's see. Any information on current revenue and costs for our client?
Yeah, I think we can save that for later.
Great. And let's see. Um, okay. So any information on, we have a single digit market share. What other competitors operate in this space? Is there a dominant player or is it pretty fragmented?
Um, it's we just take it as a status quo.
Hmm.
We don't we we focus more on profitability.
Okay. Okay, absolutely. So we have Chem X, Chem Y. Okay. Um, yeah, let's see. And just interested, who are the customers for our for our client. I just want to make sure. So maybe some customers have higher potentials for profitability or more attractive customers to market to or sell to. Is there any information on the customers of our client?
I mean, we are actually producing commodity chemicals, so customer is a factor that is less to worry about.
Okay. And so what does commodity chemical mean? Like, is it, what is
Great.
a commodity chemical?
Glad you asked that. So commodity chemical is like just think about commodity metal,
Hmm.
like copper, like those are really the basic things that you need to sell to other manufacturer. They could build some other things
Hmm.
based on the commodity chemicals.
Great, great. So commodity, as a class of like corn or oil, like you said, metal, just like a
Yes,
commodity.
those are you just think about those are
Mhm.
really basic things. So which means the price is pretty much controlled by the market. Uh,
Mm,
we have no power over the price. It's pretty much depend on a demand and the supply.
great. Okay. So with no power and price, okay, what will ultimately be is the quantity sold and the cost. So,
Yes.
okay.
And the prices, as commodity, you can see from oil market are cyclical and run in a 7-year cycles. So our client is currently at the top of pricing cycle.
I see. So a cyclical 7-year cycle, and
Yeah.
we are currently in the kind of the top of the top of this. Okay, let's see. So top of the pricing cycle. Great. Okay. Let's see. So I think that's all the information I'll need for now. Do you mind if I take a moment to structure my thoughts and then we can go over my approach together?
Sure, go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much. Great. So let's see. So I just love to go over my approach with you. So to determine the sustainability of our client's business model measured by profitability, I like to look at three buckets regarding approaching this problem. So first would be ultimately determining the profitability. So what would be revenue and costs associated with our client's balance sheet. And as well, I'd like to look at outside external factors that would determine whether or not the business model is feasible or viable to continue forward. With profitability, with revenue and costs, we already discussed that price is not relevant as it is determined by a cyclical 7-year cycle. And so disregarding price as irrelevant for our clients' considerations, I look at quantity demanded. And so particular I like to look at in this cycle, what drives this cycle, and perhaps maybe there are disruptions in the cycle, such as supply chain disruptions or particular interest in the commodity or greater kind of new new technology that comes into the market that requires our chemical commodity more. And so whether there will be any fluctuation in demand. Also, I like to split into the quantities of Chem X and Chem Y, because Chem X and Chem Y, they are, I assume, are different kind of classes of chemicals used for different purposes. Perhaps there would be opportunities more for Chem Y or Chem X that we can look into, whether, again, if there's a new technology or new player in a adjacent market that needs this commodity or a class of commodities more so than the other. So if there's opportunity for increased demand. Ultimately leading to increased quantity sold and ultimately increasing revenue. For costs, I like to look at the pretty standard costs, fixed costs and variable costs. With fixed costs, with this being a manufacturer, I like to look at the facilities, insurance, equipment, salaries of the people we employ. Ultimately, looking to see if there's any weight that needs to be shed that we could drop on our balance sheet to allow for future improved profitability as a result of dropping kind of some dead weight that's increasing our fixed costs. And finally, as well with the variable costs, I like to look at wages of our employees and other location benefits. Perhaps we can outsource some manufacturing or move to cheaper areas for this manufacturing operation, even a different country or different area or different classes of different wages. And as well, I like to look at the supply chain of raw materials, of course, distribution of the manufacturing operations, whether raw materials or distribution in particular are driving higher variable costs as we increase our production of the commodity chemicals. And finally, I like to look at outside factors such as, again, market fluctuations, and if particularly there are similar products with the commodities market. So when I think about commodities, I think, for example, corn or rice or soy. And if, for example, there is whatever reason that there are similar alternative products or substitutes or complements that are increasing and decreasing in the market for demand, that would affect our clients' profitability. And so I'd like to look into some outside external factors. And finally, we had mentioned that our client experienced bankruptcy and has limited access to capital. I like to see if there's any outside, with limited access to capital, whether there are still sources of investment that we could look to so that our client could get the capital they need to improve their facilities or whatever they need. So whether or not there are alternative sources of investment to bolster our clients' capabilities for moving forward in their business. And so from this, looking at the profitability, the one thing I look to look at first is with price not being relevant due to this being a cyclical price cycle and being at the top. What worries me is that we're at the top of the pricing cycle and are soon to be going down. And so if the price is dropping, and profitability will drop as well due to the not necessarily, but revenues, we need to make sure that our quantity demanded will hold steady or not increase so that we are not at risk of dropping our revenues to a dangerous relative amount. So is there any information you would have about what would be factors affecting quantity demanded of this commodity chemical and whether our client would have this sustainable source of revenue despite being top of the pricing cycle?
Yeah, sure. Just keeping in mind, the client will not be able to endure any net losses. So the first question for you is, can the client survive the bottom of the pricing cycle in 3 years? So when we talk about the pricing cycle, so at this moment, the prices for Chem X is 150 per ton and will fall 1/3 within 3 years. And for Chem Y, it's 175 per ton and will fall to $100 per ton in 3 years.
In 3 years. Okay. 1, 2, 100. Okay, great. So great. So just to clarify the question, our client, we want to make sure that our client can survive a bottom in pricing in the bottom of the cycle in 3 years, particularly for for the in 3 years, in which the price of our clients' products of Chemex and ChemY will fall from Chemex to $150 per ton right now at the top of the pricing cycle to 1/3 of that in 3 years, which will be at $100 in the third year. For Y, it would be $175 per ton, and it will also drop to $100 per ton in 3 years. Just make sure, is that what we have so far?
Yes.
Great, great. So let me see. So with profit, with our goal of surviving, we cannot have any net losses, no net losses in all 3 years that will proceed as the pricing drops in this cycle. So without any net losses for our client. And so that's a pretty, we'll see if that's feasible. And so I want to ask, let's see. So could I take just a minute, or a couple seconds to just think about how I approach this problem?
Great.
Great, thank you. So let's see. Okay. Great, great. So I have an approach that I think would be a good start. I want to split, of course, with the net losses being measured in profitability. I like to look at this problem in terms of revenue and cost. Hopefully, with revenue being ultimately leading that there's no net losses. And so ultimately in revenue, we have the price that it will drop from the current of year zero, at the beginning of year one to be, we have those figures. And then from year to year, from year one, year two, year three, I like to look at how much quantity of each ChemX, ChemY, ChemX and ChemY will be sold, ultimately to determine a revenue calculation, a revenue figure for each year to measure whether there will be net losses. And so with that being the revenue calculation, I'd like to look at the cost, of course, fixed costs and variable costs. Fixed costs, I just like to get an idea of what those fixed costs would be, whether we can get a list of that. And with the variable cost, of course, is determined on quantity times the variable cost sold. And so we have the price driven, and so I'd like to learn later on what the cost is. Cost associated with, I guess the unit is a ton. So how much cost associated is of each ton of the two commodity products, and then ultimately multiplying that quantity, finding what profitability would be in the end. And so first, what I'd like to know is some information. In the 3 years in this pricing cycle, do you have any information of what that depreciation of that or that decrease in price would be? Do you have information on, is it a straight line, for example, and that it would fall $100 in 3 years, it would fall 1/3 of that $50 every 3 years, and for the both chemical products?
Yeah, sure. So for the quantity, is pretty stable. Chem X is produced 100,000 tons each year. Yeah, and regarding the that's so, and when you calculate the profitability, to save you some time, we do need to calculate the profitability every year. So the question here is whether our client can survive at the end of the 3 years.
Survive at the end of 3 years.
Yeah.
And just to make sure, so 100 tons are sold of X each year, holding that quantity steady. Is there any information on Chem Y of quantity sold?
Yeah, Chem Y is a byproduct,
Oh,
and the ratio of,
that's right. Well,
yeah.
Thanks. Okay, so 150 tons each year. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I missed that. Great. So we have the quantities X and Y. With this being commodity, again, this would be hold pretty steady. And with the goal of whether or not our client would survive in 3 years, let's see. And so again, I just want to make sure. So in year one, we'll be holding at $150 a ton for ChemX and ChemY, for ChemX and 175 for ChemY. You said that we shouldn't calculate for each year. And so how would you recommend? Would you recommend just a
We
for
just want to know the year 3 data.
oh, okay. We only want to know the year 3 data.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, absolutely. Okay, oh, absolutely. Great. So we have both those information. So we just need year 3 data. Year 3 data. We just need year 3. Okay. Well then I'll first go ahead and calculate the revenue for year 3, and then we can move on to costs. And so this would be a pretty straightforward calculation, I would say, because we have the price for ChemX and we have the price for ChemY, also in year 3, which ChemX is $150 $100 per ton in the 3rd year, and again also $100 per ton for ChemY in 3 years. So pretty straightforward. With ChemX, it would be 100,000 tons sold each year, and so with $100 more, $100 sold per ton, we would have, let's see, 1, 2, 1, 2. We'd have 10,000 tons sold per year. 10,000, excuse me, 10,000 tons of revenue from ChemX in the 3rd year, which is $10 million in revenue for ChemX. And for ChemY, we have essentially the same. It would be, with that same calculation, it would be $15 million in revenue in ChemY. So adding that together, we will have a revenue in year 3 of $25 million. Revenue for year 3 for our client. Great. And so with that being the year 3 revenue, $25 million per year, excuse me, $25 million for year 3 for our client in revenue, I'd like to now move on to cost. Do you have any information on what kind of fixed costs would be associated with year 3? And then also, because we have the quantity of X and Y sold, do we have any variable costs associated with any figure for X and Y, the chemicals?
Yeah, we do know the fixed costs are 20 million per year. And also for the variable cost, it's for $50 for every combined ton of X and Y. And that will rise to 95 ton next year. $95 per ton next year.
Great. And so just to make sure, $95 per ton next year, will that be the price in 3 years, in the 3rd year? Great. Okay. In year 3. Okay. Okay. And so with, $95 per ton being in year 3, and we're just looking at year 3, let's calculate the cost associated in year 3. So, and this is $95 per ton combined of X and Y. Okay. And so with X being sold 100 tons sold per year, and Y 150 tons per year, I'll just go ahead and add them together. And so we'll have 250 tons sold per year of, combined X and Y. And with $95
it's, remember, Chem Y is a byproduct.
Right. Okay. And so, okay, so it would just be $95 per ton of the Chem X. Because it would, just to make sure. So the $50 ton combined for X and Y, what does that mean in regards to is this the variable cost associated just to manufacture X?
I mean, actually, so the byproduct is when you produce X, you just immediately get Y. Yeah. So we produce 100K tons for X.
Absolutely. Okay, great. So it would be 100,000 tons, 100,000 tons of X. That would be our variable cost associated because Y would just ultimately be a byproduct of what we have. So we process 100,000 tons and get, so okay, great. And so from that 100,000 tons of processing with $95 per ton, again, pretty straightforward calculation. It would be um, it would be $9.5 million of variable costs in right, $9.5 million in variable cost in year three. And then of course adding the fixed cost of $20 million per year, we're coming up to a figure of $29.5 million in fixed cost in costs in year three. And right, I mean, right, does that, just making sure, does that figure sound right to you? $29.5 million in costs in year three?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So immediately, there's an issue here where we have $25 million in revenue in year three, and we have $29.5 million in costs. And so ultimately in year three, we have a net loss of $4.5 million, which is exactly what we don't want with our client, with our client cannot suffer any net losses. And so with this being with this being trouble, I'd like to now look at if there are any alternative sources of revenue or alternative business models that our client could approach because they're not going to survive in 3 years. And so whether if there is there any information on whether our client has any capabilities to produce new products, or maybe I could come up with some ideas for our client to change up their business model. Otherwise, because they won't be surviving in 3 years. So we need to improve, we need to do something to make it so that their business model can survive.
Oh, yeah, I think you're asking a good question. So, what could have been the underlying reasons for the client's inability to survive the bottom of pricing curve a few years ago? You remember our client has been experiencing a bankruptcy.
Hmm. Right. So there's an inability a few years ago to that bankruptcy couldn't survive. Okay. Survive down price. Okay. So some underlying reasons for inability a few years ago that led to a bankruptcy when it couldn't survive the low price cycle. Okay. Let me see. Is it okay if I take a second to structure my thoughts, and then you can, just a little while to so I can
Just a while, just quick, please.
okay, great. Um, okay. Okay, great. So I just had a couple ideas, particularly with demand and supply. Whether or not demand a few years ago was had changed in any way for a particular client. So whether there are competitors that came in with improved manufacturing capabilities that were able to flood the market with extra, well, this is supply, but flood the market with more commodities, driving ultimately, perhaps producing a better manufactured commodity or chemical, thus reducing the demand that our client is experiencing. Because ultimately, the price is not something that our client can control. So it would be ultimately in some related to the quantity or the costs that are associated with the profitability. So again, with quantity, whether or not there were changes in the market landscape for a reduced demand for this product, whether innovation so it made it so that there were alternative products that were sustainable, like new chemicals or new manufacturing processes, or different demand, like for or new innovations. Or it could have been not only the let me see. Oh, not only would it be substitutes, but also complements, where it would be complements such as other raw materials associated with Chemex to make whatever products we need. Maybe their prices have increased, or maybe complement complement products or complement manufacturing materials where prices drew up, or there was some accident and there are less of that complement, then either complement or substitutes could drive the quantities sold up and down. And ultimately with costs, with fixed costs and variable costs, perhaps the fixed cost drove up, like the raw materials to purchase drove up, or maybe utilities in this particular area drew up, or whether wages or some sort of union associated with this manufacturing operation driving up costs. So perhaps unions or raw materials costs or manufacturing costs, distribution costs, all for this chemical. Like perhaps it is a chemical. Perhaps there are tankers that hold this chemical, and perhaps there's a shortage of tankers, and so there's the cost for distribution rose up. And then with fixed costs, perhaps that salaries are increased, or just for the reason like maintenance has increased as well for this manufacturing operation. So those would be some ideas I would have. Ultimately, it would be either quantity or costs, considerations, ultimately affecting the demand, ultimately affecting our client's profitability in the few years when it was bankrupt. It led to bankruptcy.
Yeah, so now we have the actually we're evaluating two opportunities.
Mhm.
So please discuss the compare the two opportunity and what are the risks associated with the following two options. So one is acquire or move into a counter cyclical price cyclical chemical business. And the second option is provide additional products or services relevant to a key customers.
Additional products, services. Great. Okay. Great. Okay. Could I take a second to just come up with some ideas to how what would be good considerations?
Yeah, please be quick.
Absolutely. Great. So I have some ideas for this. So with the two ideas of acquiring a counter cycling, pricing cycling chemical business, and as well the other of additional product and services idea, I split this into pros and cons to consider. And so with the first idea to acquire a counter cycling chemical business, obviously the pro would be there's a pricing buffer with the price of our underperforming or chemicals, or just with the cycle not being able to survive the dip, we would have a counter for a pricing buffer. And so right away, that's just immediate pro that should be considered. However, the cons of this would be that our client suffered bankruptcy, and coming up with the investment would be difficult to acquire this new chemical business. And so that would be quite difficult. We just might not have the funds, or whether we have to come up with that organically, the funds, and that would be just quite an issue. The initial investment cost. The second would be that this is a new product. I'm not sure whether our client would acquire a chemical that they're familiar with, but with a totally new product, entering a totally new market, there will be, I imagine, already existing players in the market, and there may be some inexperience of our client to manage this new chemical, and whether they would need to, what exactly would be the startup cost to get this commodity, their new chemical business, if there was an acquisition off the ground, especially entering new market, current players, whether or not there's demand. And so I'm not sure if in the 3 years they will have whether this timeline is too short for them to get this off the ground. And so not only is there a financial aspect, but also just the operational, whether this is a good idea for our client, whether inexperience or new product or new market. With the additional products and services, I would have that the pros would be that our client will be more familiar with this kind of market. So if there's already, they are producing the chemicals, and they could offer maintenance kind of facilities, or offer perhaps equipment that they could sell along with the chemicals or so on. So they would have more experience, and they would have a similar product portfolio already in place. However, there still is, of course, the initial investment cost and initial, operational feasibility of whether they can provide these product service, hire more people for the services, or come up with more byproducts, or however they would do. But also is that they are still they are still operating in the same pricing cycle, in the negative pricing cycle. And so whether or not they could still survive that pricing cycle that they're kind of enslaved to, and whether or not just adding additional products and services would be able to make up that net loss they would experience. And so just adding some more additional product services, it would depend on what it would be, like adding new product, new gizmos or new equipment with it, or additional service to improve safety or efficiency for our clients with this chemical. It would be dependent on how effective those additional product services would be to make up for that pricing cycle that they are still going to be dependent on. That's still their business model is dependent on. So those are my pros and cons for both of the two opportunities.
Yeah, so if neither of the two options is viable, what strategic options would you recommend to the client?
Okay. Great. Could I take just a couple seconds to come up with some ideas?
Yeah, sure.
Great. So I just had a couple ideas. If neither an acquisition or additional products would be a good idea, then I have a couple ideas for move it. So one thing is we can do a joint venture or work with some complements. So perhaps we can look at whether there are, I'm not sure if there's commodity companies, this is a commodity company, maybe there are equipment manufacturers or some kind of another commodity that we could operate in, work with another company that operates in the similar space to hopefully maybe find some synergies to drive up both of our companies, but without acquiring a company. So just working with another similar company in this space to sell our products, cross sell them, or however they would, however exactly ideas of. I don't know the details of what Chemex and ChemY are, but perhaps a joint venture. Second would be expanding to new territories. So perhaps in another country or another manufacturing facility, or there is opportunity for growth. And so I'm not sure if this pricing cycle would be but perhaps, for example, like I think about corn. Corn is very huge in Americas, but perhaps we can expand to Asia. There's not so much of a corn presence in Asia, and so maybe there's some new products they can introduce there. So pretty much just some new territories to consider, like new physical location territories. As well, we can also market to new customers as well. So with Chemex and ChemY, perhaps they are, if this chemical is not so specialty and niche, perhaps it has alternative uses in other industries. So perhaps Chemex and ChemY is operating in the oil and gas industry or the pharmaceutical industry. Perhaps there are some uses that it could be used in consumer products, or it could be used in semiconductor manufacturing, or just some other manufacturing operations. And so between joint venture with similar companies operating the space rather than acquisition, expanding to new territories to hopefully meet underserved markets, or reaching out to new customers that could possibly be that this commodity would be helpful for. Those would be some ideas I have in case the original two opportunities are not viable.
So the CEO is entering the room. What's your final recommendation?
Absolutely. Could I just take really quick to conclude my thoughts?
Sure.
Okay. Great. So just a couple ideas. Excuse me. So thank you first of all for letting me work on this case. I want to conclude my thoughts. So in the objective of determining the sustainability of the business model of our chemical commodity manufacturer, Camco, I'd like to my recommendation is to acquire another company operating in the counter price cycling space, to balance out a buffer for our inability to maintain a sustainable business model. This is because after performing a profitability analysis in the next 3 years as the pricing cycle decreased, I found that our client will not survive in the third year due to the revenue and cost that would be associated with our client's business model. Due to this, we will need to bring in some new ideas and looking at the first opportunity of acquiring a counter-cycling pricing chemical business. It would offer a pricing buffer as well as offer new territories and customers that would be associated with the new chemical that we would acquire that we would be manufacturing. However, with the risk involved is that initial investment costs. With the bankruptcy that our client experienced, it would be difficult to come up with the funds. So whether or not we have available funds now that we can use organically, or whether there are still maybe some networking opportunities or some kind of some kind of just selling point negotiation to get the necessary investments need to at least acquire maybe a small chemical operation, maybe not a completely dominant, but also just to enter a new market to bolster our profitability. Another risk would be our inexperience in a new commodity space, especially if our client is used to the Chemex and ChemY manufacturing. And as well with operational, whether or not if we were to acquire a new company that would enter a new chemical business in the counter price cycling industry, whether operationally we can get off the ground, where we can come in and improve and make it so that the manufacturing operation is still viable and that we can keep the costs down and keep the revenue and the quantity produced up. And so for the next steps, I'd like to look into whether we can come up with some funds for making this venture and whether or not looking at some target acquisition or looking at this target of acquiring to see if ultimately this investment would be a good choice. So not only coming up with investment costs, looking to gather those funds, as well as doing a financial analysis of whether the acquisition would be a viable to return a profit within the next 3 years before our client is in trouble with its net losses. Thank you. Okay.
How you feel?
That was good. That was good. That was good. I think that went well. I think that what was troubling with the calculation, I think I missed some stuff like the 1.5x and the with it being a byproduct, what the variable cost would be. So that was tricky. And as well with the brainstorming, I just think that with the first brainstorm of underlying reasons, I was just all over the place. You can see I think demand, supply, quantity, costs. I don't even know what revenue and costs, or I did competition and customer. I just did not come up with good buckets for that brainstorm, and so I was all over. I think I had good ideas, if not customized ideas, but it was just all over the place. With the two opportunities, I'm really glad I came up with this pro and con chart, and so I think I did really well on that brainstorm. And then the final brainstorm, I think it was okay, just not very customized. But what can I think I came up, joint venture, new territories, new customer. I think those are all pretty bread and butter kind of, ideas to increase profitability. And finally, I think the recommendation was a little bit messy. But yeah, overall, and as well, my structure I think was not super messy because in my revenue bucket with the quantity demanded, I already had went into some, out like market fluctuations and whatever, could be driving quantity problems. And I had another bucket for outside. I had another bucket for outside. And so I wish I had just done revenue and costs. And I think I left it at that. I wish I left it at that. But yeah, overall, like I don't want, it's not helpful to give, but I'd say like a B, I think, yeah, I think that's what I would say. But yeah.
Yeah, I think overall it's great. It's important to keep us warm and keep practicing. Yeah. Let me share the screen and go over the case. This is chat share how to share the screen. Could you let me share the screen?
Oh yeah, let me do that. Okay, that should do it.
Yeah. Right. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Great. So here we are. I mean, this is a pretty short case.
Took a while.
Yeah, a short one, and not too many details and in the case. So let's start from the beginning. And the case from you did a great recap. Always remember all the kind of important details. And you ask for object is good, and you ask for a supply chain. I mean, you ask for competitors, you ask for a supply chain. I mean, those are reasonable questions. But however, I want to mention, uh, especially for you, in the opening, you always ask too many detailed information, which are not necessary. So as long, I mean, you need to make a judgment before you start to ask, will this information be helpful to adjust your structure later or not? Or for example, you ask for what about the revenue and the cost? Do we have any data on that? So if so, I tell you, oh, the revenue is 100 million. Then so what? Are you keep asking? Or are you what kind of insight you trying to, what kind of hypothesis you try to frame? If you just ask for a revenue data, a revenue number, there's no benchmark, no comparison. I mean, there nothing can do with the number. And you ask about the customer, and oh yeah, you didn't quite understand the commodity. You ask about commodity later on. So basically, a commodity, you can think about oil and gas. I mean, they produce oil, they produce gold, but but they cannot control the customers. Because this is commodities. Think about gold and silver. So a lot of customer are going to buy gold and silver. So they only have a roughly idea what's the overall demand, but they don't have. I mean, they don't manage customer relationship because they just produce, and then people will come to buy. So that is what called the commodity. So you ask about customer, which is irrelevant for to this case. And yeah, it's just every time your opening is way too long. I think that's kind of a waste of the time. And if that is in a real interview session, I mean that will give you pressure for you to fully I mean, so you spend 6 minutes on just the opening, and it's kind of double the time than the time suggested. And then moving on the structure part, there's no you can see there's no structure in the case, but in the structure as you mentioned, so for you mentioned 3 buckets, revenue, cost, and external. You're right. It's not that messy. You mentioned external disruptor in the revenue part, and also I want to mention the key thing I want to mention is the key thing I want to mention is the whole structure. You are not delivered in a hypothesis-driven way. So when you, for example, when you deliver cost, you say, oh, for the cost of, I would like to look at the facilities, salaries, equipment. I mean, you are stating the items that come out of your mind. It's not in a structured way. It's not in a hypothesis way. So if you deliver it in a hypothesis way, so, it should be like the second I would like to look at the cost. Will whether the cost is the key driver or key issue that we are facing. So and I would like to understand which is the most most which part of the cost increase significantly, whether there is a part of the cost increase significantly during the past years.
Mhm.
And so it's, I mean, you mentioned a lot of items, but for when you go over the recording, and you will figure that out, it's from an interviewer perspective. It doesn't make any it doesn't add up any insight if you just state, oh, facilities, salary, equipment. It's not structured, and I don't know why you ask for such problems. So how those items are related with the problems we're solving. So the link are not clear. So I think that's the most important thing, because you are so familiar with the cost, especially for a manufacturer. And the cost bucket, I was surprised it's not delivered in a structured way. And you just keep mention whatever ideas, whatever items come to your mind. So at least cost, fixed, and the variable, right? But you didn't mention it. What else? And also after you finish the third bucket and you go back to price at the end. So I don't know why you talk about something about price. I couldn't remember clearly, but I put it down on the notes. So it's not clear on a delivery perspective. So when you finish the external factors, then just stop here and then moving on, drive the case forward. And then for the math, so overall the structure, it took 2 minutes. It took 2 minutes to do the structure and took 5 minutes to do the delivery. So the time is great. Yeah. And for the math, it still is way too long. I mean, this is quite a simple math, right? This is
Yeah.
the most easy one. So price and quantity variable and the fixed, and it take you, and you keep saying this is pretty straightforward, but still it take you 2 minutes to get the revenue. I don't know why. I mean, it's $100 and the multiple 250,000. You should get 25 million immediately, but it took you 2 minutes. And when you go over the recording, you will realize how long you take. I don't know why you it's what stuck. I mean, I remember you do mental math pretty quick,
Yeah,
but
I got it immediately. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know why you such simple mental math took you so long. And so overall, it took 12 minutes.
This
From
one question.
Yeah, it took 12 minutes. It took 3 minutes to deliver the structure, and which is a simple structure.
Yeah.
You know, you shouldn't. I mean, such simple structure, it take almost as long as the whole structure. And
Yeah.
then you take 9 minutes to do the calculation. And among the 9 minutes, it took 2 minutes to get the total revenue, 25 million. And yeah, and I don't know, it's there. I mean, I don't know where to improve, but there's definitely room to be improved. Yeah. And then moving on is the
Wow.
brainstorm, the first brainstorm. The first brainstorm, I would say there is a logic flow in the first brainstorm. It's so you mentioned, oh, price is out of control, so that is not an issue we should consider. But we cannot control the price. Doesn't mean we are not affected by the price, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, why we're experiencing the pain? Because we have no pricing power at all, and we have to experiencing the pain of pricing cyclical, no matter we want it or not. So I mean, that is a real issue. I mean, you cannot remove the first items just because we cannot control, but that price actually influence our bottom line a lot. And then uh still still is for the cost part, it's still not delivering in a structured way. You just pump up cost items randomly and not in a logic pattern. And so move on the brainstorm two. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The brainstorm two is the best brainstorm among the three.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's pretty clear, and you deliver in a structured way, and some great ideas as well. And then moving on, the last brainstorm. I like the idea of the partnership. You can find a joint venture, and you can share the risk with others. But then you come up with, we probably could expand the new customers or new products. I mean, that's similar to the previous option, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they offer two options. One is get another account, and another is get another product. So and basically you're offering, you're repeating the same idea. So that's one thing, and the other uh is, yeah, its customer is not really under our control. So it's a huge market. It's it's really hard to get the customers. So and I like the ideas from here. So if you really struggle, you can consider to sell the company. At least you can collect some money on the table, liquidate the plan. So those are some options that it's also a good lesson for me. So we when we are in the interview, we always want to come up with a solution and solve the problems, but not every problems have a solution. Sometimes collect money maybe is the best ways. And then moving on to the recommendation. Recommendation, you should acquire another company. Um, you, um, you know
Is
what?
there a slide for it?
Yeah, you know what? Compared to the final recommendation, acquire another company, I like your idea. Maybe could start a joint venture partnership better, because joint venture is usually such arrangement will be like exchange the shares. So there may be no need for large capital to get the partnership done. So so I really like the joint venture ideas. And you say, I mean, I think it's overall it's okay. So you deliver a strong recommendation, and you mentioned about the risk, about the capital, and next step is looking for funds. So I don't have much to say on the recommendations. So yeah, overall is it's good. It's just too long. It's still, I mean, it's still too long on the on the math part. And also when you talk about cost, it's not in a structured way. So when we talk about speaking in a structured way, it's every items. As long as you start to talk, you have to think and trying to present in a structured way.
Yeah, that actually is so 12 minutes for like just looking 12 minutes for that. That is insane.
Yeah.
That's really insane.
And
But
when you look at others, so and it's way too long for you. For you, it's way too long for opening, way too long for the math, especially such simple math. It takes 6 minutes. You know, it takes 6 minutes to do the opening. That's way too long. You only take 5 minutes to do delivery. Or you know, the delivery of the structure, the main structure.
I
the
took longer for the
yeah,
opening than
yeah. And so for the brainstorm, 1 is 3 minutes, brainstorm 2 is 6 minutes, brainstorm 3 is 2 minutes. So and the recommendation is 3 minutes, is 3 to 4 minutes. So yeah, other section is pretty good, but it's just the opening and the math.
so it was about a 30-minute case, right? I mean, wait, hold on. Yeah, anyways. I can't believe I took 12 minutes for that was so ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah, I never okay, all right, yeah, that's pretty glaring issue. Yeah, thank you so much. That's great feedback. The opening and the math. Um, that's just so yeah, that's just so it's just so interesting to hear it because like, you know, I get like I was talking to Kevin about this because Kevin has like a chemical engineering degree as well, and he's at Duke. This is very much an engineering kind of approach. We just list everything and then like because that's a lot of how we do our exams is that we list everything and then we just play with it for like an hour, and that's just not what to do here. It's just it's a time crunch, and so yeah.
The interesting things you keep saying, "Oh, this is pretty straightforward. This is pretty straightforward." Like you mentioned 3 times, this is pretty straightforward, and you didn't get the number.
Yeah.
I feel frustrated when you like that. So when it's pretty straightforward, and the next second you should pump up with the data, the final result, and I don't know. I mean, it seems like you keep saying that, but you didn't do the calculation. Why? What stopped you there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So my comment, the strong part, I didn't put too much comment on there. So I just focus on
Course, yeah.
the places to improve. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like you're right in the calculation. I just did so much. Gosh, and you're right. It's so straightforward. I kept yeah, you're right. I kept saying that. I think, I remember saying that. I just kept saying over and over. But okay. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I haven't received the previous case.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah, let
yeah,
me do that.
just when you have time, please send that to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, largely it was I remember it was largely yeah, it was largely like a brainstorming case. But yeah, definitely I'll send that over to you. It just felt kind of bad because the case was just the last case we did was just so it was just not a great case, and so I'll go back and look at what was helpful. But yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I mean, look at, I mean, even though you haven't practiced for such a long time, there you can still feel there are muscle memories there, right? It's
Yeah, it's just the math is just it's just so gosh, 12 minutes. I didn't gosh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Um okay, that's great. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, this is so interesting. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you
still have
again.
some minutes. So how's everything? How about your week?
Sorry, what?
I mean, we still have 2 minutes. So how's everything? How about your
Yeah.
week?
It was good. It was really good. I've been doing a lot of stuff. Like my parents, they went to Seattle to visit my sister and my niece, and of course my brother-in-law. And they came home yesterday and basically anyways, my dad just said because my sister's obviously not home, like 'cause she's in Seattle and has a house there. But my dad was just basically like Steven has grown so much since like last year. Like it hasn't translated to like a paycheck or a job offer, but he's like completely like more mature and I agree with him. And so where I'm at right now is I was laid off last year in November 14th, and so that's almost to the day 2 months from now. And so I think for 2 months I am just going to give it my all for consulting, like just full on like network like crazy, just 2 more months. I'm just gonna give myself 2 more months, hard deadline, November 14th. And if in 2 months, November 14th, I'm just not getting anywhere, I'll like go for a like a just a technician job or something, or like some kind of chemical job. Because I feel like I haven't given this my all. Like I've always just been kind of like wishy-washy, kind of like procrastinating, not really networking at all, not really applying at all. So that's what I think I really want to do.
Have you received any email from Eric?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I see. So I thought Eric sent email for everyone because he sent an email for me and he asked me my progress where I am at this moment.
Oh,
And um I mean I will offer what I have known so far and I will leave that on table for you to decide whether to go completely for the consultings. So um the thing is, I mean, so the consulting industry is experiencing challenges. There's no doubt, and experiencing challenges because of different factors. So one is the economy. I won't say a downturn, or I won't say it's going down, but it's in a transition. It's in a transition period. So people are not sure what is going on forward, and also rising interest rate, capital is so expensive, and people are I mean, because of capital is expensive, so therefore they're cautious about expansion. They're cautious about budgeting. So if you listen to the follow up with the news, Wall Street Journal news,
yeah.
I mean, I would say 70% are talking about how to cut the budget. And so, I mean, that is when you cut the budget, they cut budget with consulting services. Those are the budget that easy to cut. So which means their client don't have budget for consulting services. And for example, like what are the hot topics? For example, like sustainability, like I'm doing. But however, sustainability doesn't transform to revenue. This is just a concept. This is a buzzword. This is not a solid. Oh, and think about AI. This is still also a buzzword. So if you incorporate AI, there's no doubt you have to pour a lot of capital and resources. But what is the result? It's not clear. Will that generate more sales? Will generate more customers? There's no one can guarantee that. So and people are and also and because I mean we're facing the rising interest rate, and why we're facing that because the Fed government cut the interest rate during the pandemic. So there was a um I mean not just consulting industry but other industry like technology, like I mean they have hired unnecessary people during the pandemic, during the low interest period. So they're laying off people. And so that is where we are at this moment for the economy. And also and for those are the external factors. And then I want to talk about internal factors. So about what's next if you get a position? What's next if you get a job? So it's if you're already in the consulting company, they don't have the responsibility to train you. They train you as a benefit, as they train you. And so when you get in the consulting industry, it is not guaranteed that you got a project, you got work to do.
Mhm.
So they're so-called on the beach, on the bench. So and people and so
Yeah, you're
that
right.
is when you don't have projects, you have to wait. And if you wait for too long, and they have they have parameter to evaluate the people's potential and how much work, how much effort you have been made for the company, and will they consider to promote you or not? So if you've got no project to do, and so which means your internal evaluation will be like 0.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then how you get a project if the company don't have a project? And so usually as an entry level consultant, and even like me, so the only way to survive is keep now working with the partners and senior partners to wish that I could join some cool projects. So but now at this moment there are not so many projects there, and even the existing the consultant already within the industry, it's not, they don't have a lot of things to do. So a lot of them are quitting the job. And so after what I mean, they will evaluate you every 6 months. time passed fastly. So after 6 months, you got nothing to do. And then what's next? They will give you a red flag. Oh, first time red flag, second time red flag. Then you will be. I mean, they won't say fire, but as long as you don't move up, that is signal you need to leave.
Yeah.
So that is what is consulting industry, the current status, and they don't have business, so their consultant don't have work to do, and just think about it. If after 1 year you cannot survive, and doesn't matter is that because of your own capability or because of it just no work to do. But after 1 year, you're leaving the consulting company, the industry. And when you're trying to apply to other opportunities, they will ask what kind of project you're doing. I said, I didn't do much because of the economy. I mean, they don't care. They won't buy the they won't buy McKinsey name because you just spent 1 year there. They want to buy your experiences. They want to buy your insight. They want to buy your as a human capital. So just think about it in long term, and that's the second thing. And the third thing is, so the opportunity window is getting small, but the competition is still fierce. So a consulting job is still a dream job for a lot of people. And you don't have a full-time job for quite a while. So I mean, they raise their bar way higher than the bar in the pandemic period.
Yeah.
So I mean, when
Yeah,
they
I hear you.
interview you, not just not just casing skills, not just your soft skills, but they keep wondering what can you bring on the table.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, Ellen. Yeah. I think it's tough to, and by the way, great Misi way to put it, external next internal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I've just been a little bit in, you're right. I think it's a pill I've been struggling a pill I've been struggling to swallow for a while now, is that this is not the time to do it. And we talked about last week, I have a good opportunity in the San Francisco Bay Area for biotech, and like it's about time that I use it. That's been really hard. Like
Yeah, so
like
no
one
matter
pill to
which
swallow.
kind of biotech company you join, I mean, once you join,
Anything.
I mean, they
Yeah.
will talk about AI, they will talk about innovation, they will talk about the new things going on in the industry. Things are going really quickly in the Bay Area. So as long as you got such experience, like 2 or 3 months, or maybe 6 months, and consulting job is always there.
Yeah. It'll bounce back. I Yeah, I like you're right. It's been a pill I've been struggling to swallow. I've been like reflecting on a lot of values, and I think just frankly humility is a bit of a value that I need to work on a little bit, like working, getting Deloitte or McKinsey or whatever. Like I think, yeah, I mean, that's been something I've been struggling to swallow for, like, really been denial for a while, is that it's not going to work in the next, couple months. It's just not. I could always network on the side, like in evenings and stuff like that, but I need to get, especially since it's quite, it's quite, it's of course nothing. I'm not entitled to anything. I'm not anything, but I have so much more presence in the biotech, but pharmaceutical, medical device space in the San Francisco Bay Area, that, like, yeah, I could get a job reasonably quick.
Yeah,
Reasonably quick,
it's in the
but
middle of September. If you keep networking, keep talking to people, you probably can have a pretty much clearer sense before Thanksgiving about the bio. So for industry that you are familiar with, but not within the consulting. But I'm not discouraging you from keep practicing, keep preparing.
yeah,
I mean, so for example, like case skill doesn't improve itself. You need to practice it, and also how to tell your stories, how to think like a consultant, how to. I mean, also networking. Networking, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Like I have been in not working for, I mean, not working for consultant role, but I have been now working for my needs to develop my career. I have been now working for, I mean, cautiously now working since 2017. So it has been a while. So I know that networking is not a short-term effort. It's something you do daily, weekly, monthly, and you keep following up with people. And maybe 100 people you knew, maybe just one opportunity comes up. So if you want this I mean, so Eric asked me what is my progress, and I shared. So what I have been doing is I keep practicing the case and with you, and but not very actively with now working with the consultants and the and do the applications, because the NGO position at this moment offer me more exposure opportunities to what is really going on in the sustainability part. So I mean, those exposures are a great asset.
Yeah.
And you cannot imagine that even though we are lucky enough to get a position in the consulting, I mean, they're not obligated to offer you exposure opportunities. So every project you have to fight, you have to prove that you have the value to contribute. Then you can be included in the project team. It's crazy. So a lot of, I mean, so a lot, I mean, if you read some insiders perspective, they will always talk about how much pressures, how much anxieties they're experiencing as a consultant. Keep networking, keep anxious, keep feeling overwhelmed because the project is not what you can control, and the result is not what you can control. And sometimes they do free jobs to get a client, but then finally they didn't pay.
Yeah. No, thanks, yeah. What is so like I yeah. I mean, what's been coming to mind when you've been sharing all that is just like, you know, just thinking back to my time at the biotech startup. It's like, yeah, the products I was working on at the biotech startup are like just so important. It's just so important. And it's just, like I haven't, yeah, I haven't really been leading into it. So I yeah, okay. I will, I will reflect on this. And I don't mean that as just like I'll sit and think and but I
Yeah.
like, I'm saying I'm not gonna do that. I'm saying, yeah, maybe this is the time that I
Yeah, keep networking,
yeah.
keep networking both in the area arena that you are familiar with, and also keep, if you have the capacity, and keep networking with the consultants. It always good to know what's the temperature, what is the weather there,
Mhm.
what they're experiencing. I mean, the more you talk to them, the more you feel like a part of them, and more natural when you get in the, you finally get the position. So I mean, no networking is a waste of time. So when you get into the, if you're serious about consulting career, I mean, networking is key. It's a lifelong effort you have to make. You need to network the client, network internally, partners, managers, to make sure. So it's always good to know people and talk to people. And I mean, it's just all I'm saying is adjust your expectation and keep going.
Yeah. No, I completely hear you. Yeah, I completely hear you. Like this is not just like the way I put it is, I've been thinking about it. It's not like it's not this is the way. It's not like a Tinder date, you know what I mean? Where it's like, or like a Tinder hookup where it's just like, all right, one date, 1 week, and then all right, next one, right? These are really truly relationships that require commitment and building relationships and largely a lot of commitment and I haven't yeah, I haven't been I've been approaching it the wrong way for a while, and this is all the more reason what I've been trying to like learn this past 10 months since I was laid off is just like anyways, just adjusting my expectations, like you said. And I will tell you, since November of last, I really tell you know, of course, the past is the past. It's not worth like going on over and over again. But in last November, I was in a seriously, um, seriously unhelpful headspace about all of this. Like people were transactions to me, like, and just people were, like stepping stones, not just people, not just these are people, these are not, when I think of network, I think of just, what I mean? Like I thought for a long time that it was just this like, you see, I think you know what I mean. Just like a scummy way to go about it. You know what I mean? Like what's in it for me? What's in it for me? When, this is, these are, and so this is only something I've been kind of realizing in the past couple months, and I really mean that. It's just like what networking, professional connections really are. It's like a different flavor from like being close friends with someone or being in a romantic relationship with someone. Like how those are a different flavor. Professional relationships are in its own way a different flavor of relationship, but just as intimate in a lot of ways. Just as much of a mentorship, and I haven't really looked at it that way ever before. There are reasons for that, like the past is the past, but there are reasons like growing up and like personal
It takes
stuff.
time. It definitely takes time to learn what is networking and
Yeah,
how to networking and what's your style to network. So it definitely takes a lot of time
yeah.
to just to get a sense of what is it.
Hmm.
And so when you network, I mean, my tech is always I think about, wow, I really appreciate your time. I mean, there are so many options, so many things you can do outside, but you choose to spend time with me. So
Yeah, yeah,
I sincerely appreciate that. And that is the first thing. And the second thing is to show my appreciation is that to show how I respect your time. So I I mean I try my best to figure out what kind of the value that I can offer to you. So no matter how senior this person are, there's always a way. Just think about what kind of value you can bring on the table.
are you asking? And that's the thing. I genuinely don't know. I mean, just a good person
I
to
mean,
talk.
you need to practice.
Yeah,
You need to practice. This is not I don't have the answer straightforward. Yeah,
yeah.
you just have to practice how to practice. You listen to you. I mean, you overhear when other people doing the networking. You listen how they present things. So you listen. Uh I mean, I really, I mean, I couldn't think of a straightforward way to learn how to do that. But the first thing I learned is the mentality is always think about contribute rather than ask for anything.
Yeah, that's a take or consume,
Yeah, it's
What do I contribute?
just think about how you can contribute no matter how small the value you think that is, but
Mhm.
always think about contribution rather than ask for. I mean, why would they help you? Why would
I don't
they?
know. I genuinely don't know. Like,
Exactly, because they
yeah,
don't care to help you if you cannot offer. I mean, some people are kind, but I mean, kindness is not that an important factor in
yeah,
professional relationship.
yeah.
It's always
Hardworking, yeah,
yeah, it's always how it's I would say it's a more it's it's it I mean, a good relationship, it's like, even though I don't state clearly, but it already implied that we are working in a mutual beneficial ways. You do something kind to me, and I will do something more beneficial to you later on. So that kind of the thing that is I mean, people don't expect direct return. That is why, people like to not working with you. When you are looking for help, they like to spend time with you because inside their mind, oh, maybe someday he can become my colleagues. Maybe someday in the future he can become my client. Maybe someday, that is what inside their mind. So they like to spend the time with you, even though there is no immediate return. And maybe someday, and he will inspire me what is going on in the biotech.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so like that's something when you mentioned that, for one, like really appreciate value time respect, but the second of what value do I offer you, that has always been a tough question that I just feel so like, like what the heck do I have to, but like really thinking about it, like I mean,
think about, what offer you what value you offer, just first, I have to go in 3 minutes, but regarding the value, but you're young, you're full of potential, you have a future of the career is waiting there. So when people like to network with young people, networking with 20 something, they're looking for potentials. Those are the values. Show you're genuine, show you're a good person that worth their time, and show that you are not here for a Tinder thing. You're here for a relationship.
mhm.
When people can feel that, are you here for a serious relationship, or are you just trying to
Get a
trying
referral.
to get some advantage over me? People can feel it.
Yeah, it's not honest.
Yeah, it's
That, yeah, like
the thing. So when you, I would say I don't, is it a technique? It's all about mentality. So think about,
like,
first, you appreciate the time. So second, you want, as long as you want to contribute, as long as you feel like you want to contribute, I want to make your time more I mean I want to contribute my knowledge, my intelligence, my networks, my insight, whatever you need. So I would like to contribute if I can. And the third is think about, what if this is a long-term relationship? What if this is my future business partner? What if this is my future client? What if he's my future manager, future colleagues? What if? Just think about, he is someone that and if you have such image in your mind, then you will start to talk and behave differently.
yeah. No, wow, that's a whole, yeah, you're right. It's a complete different perspective change, of what I'm not, like you said, I'm not just some like young person who's trying to guess, trying to like get that referral or whatever, right? Like I'm, and I'm learning, people want to help me. People want to help a young potential, what I mean? Like they
Yeah,
want to help,
exactly.
like, and so, because I remember that when I was working at the biotech startup, there was like a young student at the University of Pittsburgh. He reached out to me to ask me about the biotech startup I was working at. What I felt so good to help him. It felt so cool. Yeah. And like we talked and we were on the phone and I reviewed his resume and everything. And it was such a cool experience. Like I wanted to help him, like I wanted to help. I like helping people. It feels good than just take and consume and and to transaction everything. I just honestly just wanted to help them because I'm like, again, like a really actually a good person. I like being a good person that's generous and genuine and caring and giving, you know. So yeah, anyways, you're completely right. I never, and thinking about the long term, like just like it's not a Tinder date or a Tinder hookup. This is also like a marriage relationship. I like being someone in a marriage. And this is, like you said, a business partner or a colleague or a client or a manager. Like some of these business relationships, they can be as intimate and profound and mutually beneficial as a marriage, as like a real genuine like wife, like a business partner, a business partner is like that is ultimate like relationship commitment, to put money where your mouth is, and build something together. Like, Yeah, and so I've just been looking at it as, as that's something, a scarcity mindset. It's been such a scarcity mindset that I've been living in. And this is something I've been looking at the past 10 months. Why is the world and people, why do they feel so scary to me? Why am I so scared? And like, even though I know myself that I love to help this, like, junior at the University of Pittsburgh, you know? So yeah, you're right. It's been I really, a serious perspective change of giving, mutual beneficial, you know, and it's just so small-minded that I'm like, oh, what do I really have to give? I'm just 25. I have nothing of nothing. But you're right. I never realized just,
Have the full potential. You have
yeah, I
the
have
full
so
future to
much
give.
potential.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable amount of potential I offer, you know? And like, because you've known me for a couple months now, and I would like to imagine like you really, I'm not gonna put you really enjoy like because you really, I'm sure you really enjoy when we work together, like, and so it's very small-minded for me to believe that like you and like maybe one or two other people feel that same way. Like I'm just so scared of this fantasy ghost in my head that like, there's only you and like a couple of the people will enjoy my company, so it's like it's such a scarcity mindset that I've been working out why and how to get out of that in the past like 10 months. So yeah.
I don't have such problem when I build a professional relationship because I always think in a practical and mutual beneficial way. So I mean those things are kind of easy.
Mhm.
When we talk about beneficial, it's things easy because those things you can measure how much relationship that I contribute to you, how many connections that how much valuable context that I connect with you. So those are things measure that you can measure how much bring value that I bring on the table. But for me, and I just come out of this toxic self doubt not too long. It's my self doubt is that I strongly believe I'm a horrible person and with an intolerable personality. I strongly believe that. So I just regardless what fact, how other people, interact with me. My thought just find out all kinds of excuses. So why he spent time with me? Because he have to, or because of he was forced to spend time with me, or he because of I'm valuable, I can bring value to the table, but not because they like me.
Mhm.
So it's so
Uh,
why I had such a toxic thought because when I was young, when in my childhood, my parents kept telling me I'm such a horrible person. So I don't have a pleasant. I'm not the person that people would like to spend time with me. So they keep telling me like this. So that thought was embedded in my thought. So when what I pretty struggle is so therefore I cannot I don't know how to build genuine
mhm.
friendly relationship with people. So without any beneficial. So I can only build a mutual beneficial relationship because I know how to behave. I can provide benefit to you. So then those are something solid. But I cannot build up any in a relationship. Just let's go hiking together. Let's go playing together. I don't know how to build such relationship. I feel like I don't know how to play with others.
Mm. The
You
play
know,
yeah. That's so interesting. It's okay if I kind of share like why I'm so, because I never, thank you for sharing that, by the way. I never that's really, so it's so cool that you're willing to share that with me. But for me, when I was a child, I'm from a pretty affluent area in the Bay Area, but my parents when we were young, when I was very young, like 7, 8, 9 years old, my parents were having very severe, very serious relationship problems. They were considering divorce, like very seriously considering divorce. And a lot of that was because my parents are very traditionally Chinese. They're immigrants, and I'm sure clearly you know that like there's a lot of the when a parent raises a child, the child is in turn the parent moves in with the child, right? To as it grows old. And that was but the issue was that both my mom and my dad, their mothers wanted to be all in this, and it's actually
oh
this
yeah.
same room right now. And there was immense amount of society, like immense amount of pressure and strife in the household. My parents were considering divorce, and at the time I was like 8, 9, 10 years old. And again, that grandmother thing completely didn't work out. It was a nightmare for like for a decade until my grandmother, my dad's grandma, mama, she died in 2007 when I was like 9 years old, and then that just set everything off. And then finally, my mom's mother, Popo, she died in 2019, so 10, 12 years later. And for that entire time period, it was just incredible conflict within the household. Like um anyways, and in that time when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, my older sister, who's 10 years older than me, she was at Berkeley, UC Berkeley, and she was an engineering major. Right out of Berkeley, she went to Accenture, management consulting, this was management consulting at Accenture, moved up, and then she went to UCLA for her MBA, and now she's head at product in at Amazon. And so in that entire time when there's this insane amount of um familial strife in my family and extended family and everything due to these two grandmothers living in this exact room, right, that I'm in here, like sharing a bed, and they hate, my older sister was absolutely killing it career wise, like killing it. And because she was out there, and I felt that the older sister was supposed to fix everything, and I was at home just this like dumb, helpless 8-year-old. I of course very self-centeredly, because I was a kid, thought that everything in this family grandmother's thing was all about me, and that I was just this big embarrassment, this big embarrassment. And if only I was professional and successful like my older sister, then maybe this whole grandmother family strife of terribleness, like it was really bad. Maybe if I was just as professional as her and wasn't such of an embarrassment, that that this whole conflict could have been resolved. But I wasn't. I was like 8, 9 years old, and so for the rest of my life I carried with me that professionally is that I am just an embarrassment. If only I was successful like my sister, if only I went to like a good enough school and got good enough grades and got a good enough job, that maybe I could have fixed everything. And so from the very onset of childhood on, I thought I was an embarrassment professionally, you know and so compared to my sister. And so that was something I've uncovered in the last 10 months. That's I never really gave myself a chance to process all of that. And so in the last, like, all this time I've been in school and working and everything, I just had this insanely just inner turmoil, crippling kind of insecurity that I was actually a complete professional fraud, that I was a complete everything. And so I've been able to uncover that and accept that and move, slowly, as you're seeing, like, move past that. But I really mean it is that this kind of, like you said, with with you, like gao peng yao, or how would you say it, like, making friends. I make friends very easily. I make friends very, very easily, but like professional, it's cripplingly insecure. I think you can see how this being raised and into just year by year, day by day, how I carried with that with me up until these past 10 months, that I've been able to really reflect on it. It's been so that's really, and I was, that's really, so as a result of that kind of inner turmoil that I carried with me is just, so
I would like to share is, I mean, I have to go really fast, but I really like to share is recently I think I have a epiphany moment. It's so when you talk about a fear, embarrassment, uh, those horrible experiences, you know, those are not reality.
yeah.
Those are just how you perceive things. Those are just in your illusions.
Yeah.
So and the illusions doesn't change facts. Only your behaviors change facts. So
Yeah.
don't let your fear, you feel like I'm embarrassed, you feel like I'm incapable, keep you from keep you from acting.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
it's an illusion. It's a complete illusion
yeah,
facade, like, just
yeah. So it's just the same fact, and different people can perceive it in a completely opposite way. So you can see how things that really And when you think you are incapable, when you think you cannot do that, and then you really cannot do that.
Mhm.
So your perception, your toxic perception could become a reality. And but it's just a perception. And you can change the perception, not very difficult, you know. You just think it in an
Just
opposite
shifts.
way.
Yeah.
You just think it in a, so you know, in a I learned about a in a Buddha, or there's a way to perceive things. So in their world, the opposite are the same category. So whenever you, for example, like heavy and light, it's in the same category. The doubt and resolve is in the same category. So which means they're basically the same things.
Mm.
It just depends on where you stand. So when you say, oh, this is challenge, this is easy, I mean, this is just a perception. You think, oh, this is so challenging, but but then you can shift your mind to say, oh, this is not that challenging. I can handle that. I can break it down, and I can. So I think that's I have been practicing
Mm.
for about 1 or 2 weeks. I think that is helpful.
Yeah,
And
no, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's
yeah.
just it's really it's just I'm just I've been putting it this way, for past couple of months. I know you have to go. I've just been mind fucking myself. You know what I mean? I've just been totally like in my own head. That it's not real. Like no matter what I think and feel, reality is reality. The truth is the truth. No matter how I try to fight it or try to manipulate it or try to whatever, the truth is the truth. And the truth is I am not as embarrassing or awful as I think I am, nor am I as capable and smart and like better than everybody. I'm the truth is I just am who I am. It's just whether or not I can accept that, and move forward with that. So
Oh,
yeah.
and also it's from my experience, it's I really hope you could step out of the shadow of, I mean, keep chasing the external expectation or societal uh approval or societal, mm, I mean, you should focus your energy and your life and your time on what you really want. I mean, you, Stephen, what you really want, what you really enjoy, what you care, rather than others. I mean, societal expectation, parental expectation, rather than, I mean, so if you care to do this, you do this. I mean, but if you want to, I mean, get a kudos, get a medal. So for what kind of achievement that I have made, I mean, those things are so fragile. Is the moment you get it, you figure out, oh, those are meaningless to you.
Mhm.
So those achievement doesn't fix your problems. You still, I mean, the more time you spend focus on, you spend focusing on what you care. I mean, the more stable and healthy and vibrant your life become.
Mm.
So it's, for me, I have been chasing, I was completely lost. So my life was in a turmoil. Um and then I found out the root cause, the root cause for this is I don't know what I care. I don't know what I like. I keep fulfilling what others people think I should do. And then to some extent, and especially after you join the consulting, is there, so I think, I mean, it's good time for you to prepare yourself intellectually, physically, and mentally. So is that the thing that you really want, or you just, I mean, getting a consultant job won't solve your problem, won't solve your relationship problem,
Yeah.
you know that, right?
Yeah.
You know that already, right?
I
So
do. Yeah.
you got that job doesn't prove you're better than your sister, or doesn't prove, I mean, it's
Yeah.
meaningless.
It's nothing. It's nothing.
It has nothing to do with that, and it won't solve your problems, how you perceive things. It won't solve your problem. It won't guarantee a bright future. It is nothing. It's just a job. It is just a job. It doesn't guarantee you the opportunity to do cool projects, because those are the things that you need to earn it hardly. And it doesn't prove that you have bright future. Think about Eric. Think about, I mean, the one startup my consulting offers. They have to figure out their own way out 2 years later. So why people left after 2 years? Because most of them cannot survive in the consulting industry. And then what's next? Nobody tell them what's next. They need to figure out themselves. So the job doesn't guarantee you, you have a healthy mentality, doesn't guarantee you, it doesn't guarantee you anything. It's just a job. So yeah, spend more time to figure out what you care and what you really want to achieve. And it's not an easy thing to figure out. I still have not get it that very clearly. It just I start to learn how to separate the things. Is that what I really want, or what the society really want, or my parents really want, or peer pressures? So those are things that cannot be solved.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you, Ellen. Yeah, I really do. This is just a job, and it is just a job. So, whether I'm whether I'm accepting who I am, or am I, practicing faith, or if I'm really, building relationships, and I just want to say, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. And these past 10 months and, today and continuing forward, what I've really been working on is like, what do I value? Like more than anything else, what do I value? Not just like, a hobby or whatever, but really truly what kind of person do I want to be? How do I approach problems and approach life and approach relationships?
Yeah.
Like no
And
matter
what do you value? What do you care? And just think about, I mean, every single minute that we spend, it's a 1 minute we closer to our death.
yeah,
Whatever things we want to achieve is
yeah,
part of our death. So
yeah,
that is sacrifice, that is commitment. So we commit our time. That is most. So yeah,
yeah.
it's
Well, what's always funny, I don't know, the last thing to say is like I saw this like little funny picture. It was like, on someone's this like little cartoon on the death. It's like, man, I wish I spent more time arguing with strangers online. It's like Twitter or Reddit. Gosh, if only I did more of that my entire life. It's like, all right, what is that? So yeah, I hear what you mean. Yeah, we, really using the time we have for what really brings what we really value and what really brings us joy. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think we have another good talk and another good week. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's keep working.
Thanks for your time, Ellen. Really, it's really, and, I think you're great, Ellen. It's just, I mean, again, your own perspective. I think you're great. I don't ever have to, I don't ever have to go to, meet up with you. So, so especially because the consulting job market is so uncertain and kind of weak right now. It is just cool to catch up with you. So don't get me wrong. Because just make sure I very easily could just cancel this and just say, oh, no, let's not meet for another like 3 months. But not only is it like a good little brain kind of exercise, it is also like, honestly, at this point it's half, yeah, half and half, just like to catch up with you and hear what you have to say. So so I think you're great. So just throw that by you. And so yeah.
Thank you, Stephen. Oh, by the way, I still strongly encourage you to network with consultant, network with your industry. Networking is always good. It's always good. Yeah.
Okay.
Do it.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, anyways, we'll keep in touch. Yeah,
Take care.
next Friday or whatever. Cool. All
Okay.
right. Thank you so much, Ellen. We'll take care. I'll
Bye
see you
bye,
next.
Stephen.
I'll
Bye
keep in
bye.
touch. All right. Bye.